You're listening to the Geek Saga podcast. This episode features audio that was recorded at a discussion panel at DragonCon 2025. Please consider backing us at patreon.com/geeksaga_entertainment for early access to these podcasts and other perks. All right, well, I guess we're going to get started. Hopefully our fourth panelist will be here and isn't, stuck forever in the habit trails or something. This panel is genderqueer high fantasy. I will be honest, I was given very little parameter for this panel, so I'm going to do my best as moderator. Especially with subjects like this, we ask everybody, please be respectful. If you want to ask a question, we prefer that you use the mics. If you cannot, then please just try to speak as loudly as you can, and I will, if you cannot actually get up to use the mic, that's understandable, but speak as loudly as you can. If I need to, I will repeat questions. So my name is Tara. My pronouns are they, them. My online presence is at a Geek Saga, and I'm an author and podcaster. My podcast is called the Geek Saga Podcast.
Hello, I am DL Wainright, author of the Hollow Sun series. I am he, they. Hi, I'm Alicia Fox-Lenz. The thing that's most pertinent to this panel is I am a co-host on the Queer Lodgings podcast, where we talk about queer readings of Tolkien, and we are writing a chapter right now for an upcoming anthology called Great Heart and Strength, New Essays on Women and Gender and the Works of J.R.R. Tolkien, and our chapter title is tentatively called She Chose Her Fate, the Genderqueer Women of Tolkien and Freedom Beyond the Patriarchal Binary, so that's what I'm probably going to be talking about.
I'm impressed with how many multiple syllable words she's using at 8 o'clock on Sunday. My name is Mel Todd. I have a publishing company. I've written about 40 books, but my best-selling series has a main character that is ace. So it ends up being really interesting when you write stories that don't have romance but have absolute commitment and love that has nothing to do with the bed.
I figured I will... Oh, hey, we've got our last panelist. Yay! Just in time.
Yes.
You can introduce yourself. I was just about to get started. I got lost. You're good. It's also Sunday night. There's very big crowds out there. So
fantastic. Hey, y'all.
So introduce yourself. Where can people find you if you have anything online? Anything about yourself you want to tell?
Yes, I'm Rose Reynolds. My voice went out yesterday.
Oh, no.
It's fine. I'm just a toad. I publish as TJ Reynolds and Atlas Kane, and I'm genderqueer as fuck. I'm on Amazon. Let's go.
So in trying to prepare as moderator for this panel, it was a little difficult for me because I wanted to do more than just, we are going to talk some about characters in existing well-known series, but it was difficult to find newer series even that would fit the high fantasy specifically. So we might end up going a little beyond that, especially since the definition, I think, of high fantasy is a lot narrower for some people, a lot broader for others. But I wanted to start with a quote from a friend of mine when I asked her if she had any high fantasy or even just fantasy recommendations with genderqueer characters, and she said, I don't, and that's so crazy because listen, non-binary folks should be the most in fantasy because gender is a fantasy. So I don't know, I guess just kind of riffing off that, do you guys feel like there is maybe more than I am finding in newer stuff that you would consider high fantasy that has actual real genderqueer presence for the characters, or?
I can think of at least Hero of the Ninth, but that's science fiction.
Exactly.
It's fantasy sci-fi.
Yeah, I was going, we consider it science fiction because it has a spaceship. Every other
But it's
aspect
so
of it is fantasy. You've got Hero of the Ninth, and it really, guess it depends on your definition of modern. Mercedes Lackey has always had various genderqueer characters, up to and including. For some of the older ones, so I read an awful lot of, or used to read an awful lot of Forgotten Realms by Wizards of the Coast. And they actually had a relatively high number, but they're all just candy bar novels. You eat them, you enjoy them, and you promptly forget that you read it. I guess the problem is I remember the stories that they were telling, and in most of them, who they wanted to sleep with wasn't the part of the story I remembered.
Gender identity has nothing to do with sexuality.
Well,
yes.
That distinction very clear from the start.
Sorry. But lots of times, especially in stories, that's usually the only clue you will really have, depending on the story. No, argue, please.
yes, please.
Because again, it has nothing to do. The two are completely completely different.
Yeah.
So that is not a clue at all, one way or another, that that somebody is going to be trans or genderqueer or non-binary or anything. Who they are sleeping with, who they are in love with, has absolutely no hint or clue to their gender.
Yes.
So that's So I will.
This is maybe worth discussing.
I
I got a couple in audiences out there, but
if you guys have things to say them, and listen, this is more for you guys and for the audience.
Yeah.
So we're talking a little bit to get this started, and then we'll take audience questions very soon. So this is a conversation, as it always should be.
I absolutely want to hear this, because for the most part, you have a person standing there in a gorgeous gown with breasts, and I don't know anything else about her because the author hasn't told me anything else about her.
Okay.
How do you tell me what her gender is? And
The author has to tell me what their gender is.
But how would you, if this was you, how would you be communicating the information to me as a reader? And I'm dead serious. How do you tell me this as a reader?
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that is definitely something that authors have to do if you are writing somebody who falls out of the binary or who is trans and stuff like that. It is your job as an author to be able to fold that into the narrative in some way. I like to reference C.B. Lee a lot as a wonderful depiction of a trans man. It was a very smoothly done thing in dialogue where one character said to the other, hey, it's been a lot of hours, do you need to go take your binder off? And the other character's like, no, and that was it. That was all that needed to be said, and we know from that point on that is a trans boy.
that's excellent.
And so just things like that could be something that shows up in dialogue and discussion and stuff like that. Or even just the way, especially if it's a third-person narrative, the pronouns or anything that are being utilized for that character could be clues for the audience. So even if somebody shows up in a beautiful dress and has breasts, if they are saying they, them, or he, him, we still know now what that person's gender is, despite what their presentation is.
And you absolutely need to read the series Gamer Girls. It is not high fantasy.
Okay.
But Gamer Girls, she has the best explanation for me to understand what it meant to be born in the wrong body.
Okay.
She has a trans character that's going through the transition. It made me sit there and read it and go, oh, okay, I get it now, because I had never actually understood what it might be like. Yeah. And that was fascinating to me.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
So I liked the reaction.
Sorry if I was...
When I transitioned, it's still hard for my family. My dad can't do direct eye contact because of shame. It's so weird, specifically because he sees me doing a sexual act, and I'm not. Yeah. I've even had people online hit me up and be like, hey baby, do you wear panties? And I'm like, what? I wear women's underwear? Is that what you're asking? And they're like, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
My mom asked for my dad originally, can you just keep it in the bedroom? And I'm like, I love people who cross-dress, and there's people that do that for a fetish, and that's sexy for them, and that's valid, but I'm not a fucking cross-dresser.
Yep.
Right? Unless I'm dressing up in boy mode, in which case I can be. But yeah, that distinction can be really, really damaging, because gender is just something you play with, and it's fluid. And if you really identify with being a woman, but you want to chop your tits off, that's a different gender presentation of being a woman, and that's dope as fuck. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We were here for our butch queens too.
But mostly for me, it was the fact that I was a massive, massive tomboy. And in one summer,
here we go.
I
That's gender, baby.
Flat to a freaking C cup. My mother was bra checking me going out the door, because if I could get out the door without wearing it.
Same.
And that wasn't necessarily her wanting to repress me, but it was the fact that they went like this.
If the idea of they them pronouns and not being non-binary had been a thing that I had any idea about when I was going through puberty, I never would have identified as she, her, ever. Not once in my life.
Yeah,
so,
100%. Finding out about being non-binary well into my 30s was such a mindfuck for me. Because I was like, oh wait, no, so many things make sense now. Oh my god.
So the name I was looking for is R.N.K. Hadley, Gamer Girls. And it is actually one of the few series I have ever read where the main character in the first book is an alcoholic and an addict. And it is just a brutal series that will have you cheering for every single woman in it. So, again, it's not high fantasy, but sometimes the characters that grab you and run with you aren't always...
Well, and you mentioned C.B. Lee. What would her series be considered? It's they're kind of like superhero... They're serious. I'm sorry. I met
cool.
I met them years ago, and I think they were.
Yeah,
still
they only just
identifying-
recently came
Okay,
out as
okay.
non-binary.
Yeah, I was
So
on a
that's
panel
what-
with them like
So
5 or
just
6 years ago.
Gentle correction. That's all.
Okay, I was on a panel with them. No, thank you,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
I was on a panel with them like 5 or 6 years ago. It's like superheroes. I've read them all, but what would that be considered? Like,
I
in
mean,
terms
that's
of-
a type of fantasy, but that's like more of like, I would say like a modern type of fantasy, because it's not
Yeah.
going to be a high fantasy. I think high
Yeah,
fantasy
for sure.
definitely has like its own kind of, you're not, and you know, everybody in this room knows this is a high fantasy, but superheroes is still a fantasy
Right.
thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
If you haven't read CB Lee, I definitely highly suggest checking their books out. They're really cute.
It's CB, right?
CB, yes.
CBLEE.
Yep.
And then also FT Lukens does some great non-binary. Yeah, see so many.
I know FT Lukens too,
People
yep.
nodding. Yeah, some good non-binary representation and stuff, and also their fantasy books and stuff. Not high fantasy books, but they're still got fantasy stuff to them.
High fantasy book that has genderqueer. Wit from Sanderson's is not giving cis.
Well, and
I think-
honestly, I was about to pull us into let's talk about some currently existing series. So perfect segue.
Yeah, it's in the Stormlight archives, and
Yep.
Wit is a reappearing character and very much serves gender fluidity or androgyny or just gender fuckery because
Yes.
Wit wants to. So I love that as an example. Just showing the play aspect of it instead of just always the trauma rigid side of
Have you read Sanderson's other books other than Stormlight?
I like the early ones.
Because Wit/Hoyd is in a lot of his books.
Yeah,
It's the
in
same
different
character.
little things,
Yeah, and I agree. Very androgynous character. So what do you guys, when you think like genderqueer and like what we know of as, especially like what this track covers, like Wheel of Time, Song of Ice and Fire, Cosmere, Tolkien, what are some of your characters that you believe like fit into this genderqueer or gender non-conforming?
Our own characters?
Or if you write your own characters, we're going to talk about your works too, for sure. But I figured we'd get well-known stuff out of the way first, and then we'll get into what you guys write and some recs if we have any at the
I
end.
actually just finished T.K. Kingfisher's Nettle and Bone, and yeah, that main character, I don't know, but just everything about her made me go, oh, I really like you, because she didn't hit any of the normal tropes you would see in high fantasy for needing somebody to rescue her or conforming, and that one was really nice. Not to mention, which is an excellent story if you haven't read it.
The one that stands out the most to me is definitely Eowyn. Not
Yeah.
for her whole, she goes and
Daddy.
it is Durnhelm. But one of the interesting things that I think Tolkien does, which is not something that you necessarily pay attention to unless pronouns are something that you pay a lot of attention to, which also I'm a bad genderqueer person, didn't get my pronouns. I am primarily they, them. I do sometimes answer to she. He switches pronouns. When Eowyn becomes Durnhelm, he goes from using she
Good call.
straight to he. And I love that so much.
I didn't notice.
Yeah, and
Base talk.
yeah. Also, there's some other really trans-affirming things in Tolkien, like the Valar and Maiar,
Yes, yep.
wear their bodies as clothing, essentially. One of the Valar, Yavanna, her gender is tree sometimes. She chooses to be a tree.
As you do.
Yeah.
I've known a few.
Yeah, like Eowyn is being a shield maiden.
Yeah.
A shield maiden, by its definition, is pushing back against this like patriarchal society that she's growing up in. And the most interesting to me is she ends up with Faramir, who is as far as we know, a cishet man, but like his particular kind of masculinity is really non-hegemonic. So they end up balancing each other out in a beautiful way. Like Eowyn, at the end, after killing the Witch King and everything, ends up becoming a healer and going off to rule with Faramir. But like healing in Tolkien is masculine coded. So she goes from this destructive kind of masculinity to a constructive kind of masculinity alongside her husband. And I think that is beautiful.
That was dope.
Yeah, honestly, for real.
Well, that's going to be fun to follow. So I was thinking about this a lot leading up to the panel, and because it's hard to find somebody. And honestly, in like a Song of Ice and Fire, I think there's two. The obvious people would like go with Brienne, but I also think Cersei. So with Brienne,
Daddy.
it's almost
Jesus Christ. She's so mean.
With Brienne, it's kind of like not necessarily an accidental or an incidental genderqueerness, but it is where even though she feels girly and feminine and stuff like that. She kind of fell into this kind of masculine role of a knight, and people keep perceiving her also not as how she necessarily sees herself inside. And that's still playing with gender, and that's still a very genderqueer character to like do. But Cersei is more of a, on the outside, she is perceived as beautiful and feminine, but she has always felt more like she should be like the king role, the knight role, the masculine role, and almost kind of bitter towards Jaime for being the twin that was the boy, because if she was the boy instead, there was so much more that she feels like she could have done. And so that also is an interesting play with genderqueerness, both on the exterior and the interior with both of those characters, I think.
Like, they refer to her as Tywin with tits.
Yes. So yeah.
I mean, Cersei is a horrible person for the most part, but I identify with that so much as somebody who is like, once I got out of like my tomboy era and like was taught to wear makeup and stuff, have been considered, just a very, very, very femme presenting, even when I don't wear makeup. And it's like, my God, but I don't want to necessarily be this. And I feel that from Cersei so much.
I was going to talk about Arya. Which links us to Brienne. And I just love seems like Arya just queers everything. Doesn't fit in, doesn't want to, shatters all expectations, does her own path. And the actor also influenced the queerness of the character, I think. You can see it come through. That was excellent. I mean, wasn't she even just going drag for a long time, pretending to be a boy?
Well, and as a faceless man, she literally changes her appearance too. They haven't gotten quite that far to her like full on changing her appearance in the books, but they will. They're working towards.
And then there's her master, the creepy. Those people are obviously all fuckers. So
Arya, I think, is the one who is genderqueer and wants to be, and Brienne is the one who is genderqueer because, like you said, she was kind of not forced into it, but like because she was the only child and she's a daughter, but her father wanted a son, and she's also very tall and is described as having a more masculine body, and not that she doesn't enjoy, like she enjoys like sword fighting, she enjoyed training, she wanted to do that, but she wants to be considered as pretty. She wants Renly to find, Renly danced with her once, and it's like, she has that sort of what you would generally consider a feminine trait of being like a romantic. And I'm being very persistent on what you would generally consider a feminine trait. So have any of you guys read the Cosmere? You definitely read Stormlight and some of his earlier stuff. Have any of you guys read the Cosmere? There's a whole bunch of characters I'm going to mention right now, and then we'll get into talking about your works. There's Rushu, who is non-binary, and this is important because like everyone's always saying she's beautiful. And like, why are you an Ardent? Because Ardents like shave their head, and they present as kind of genderless generally. But they're like, oh, everybody's like, oh, you're so beautiful. But like a lot of non-binary people has struggled with that, like has struggled with outward appearance and has leaned toward the gender that they're not really associated with. They're put in a gender box by other people. But I think Sanderson does a really good job with this particular character. If you're looking, this is Stormlight Archive, by the way. There's also someone named Ralna of the Reshi Isles. I believe this person is only in one of the novellas, and I'm blanking on the name, but there's only two Stormlight novellas, so he's a trans man. There has been some questioning of this though, because the Spren in the Stormlight Archive books allowed him to like heal his body to match his true gender, which some people find questionable because it's like magic to make you, and I'm not saying I do, I'm just saying that's kind of been an argument, like, oh well, if magic could make me this, I wouldn't have to go through so much, which is lovely. Go ahead, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say that brings up a beautiful point, though, because as we know, trans people and genderqueer people don't need to change shit about their bodies or their pronouns or their names to be genderqueer.
Yes,
valid,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and I think that's where
I think that's more beautiful
the...
than being like, look, I have perfect D tits now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I did it. Now I'm binary, and that's kind of more gross. So
there's also in the Mistborn Era 2 series, there's a character called Melan. She's a Khandra, so it's a magical being, so human gender doesn't really apply, but she switches very easily between genders, so it's read as like a gender fluid character. And then also Stormlight Archive, there are the Parshendi, who have 4 genders: male, female, Malin, and femalen. and they can switch between them. It's very literal, but also I want to say it's the male and the female, and they're also asexual as well. And then there's also non-binary Spren, and including one of the main top Spren in the series called the Sibling. So there's a lot of Sanderson has, and especially in his more recent years, he's had a lot more sensitivity readers and stuff who have helped him with some of these things. So he's been working this stuff in, and a lot of it feels more natural, especially than maybe the earlier stuff than I would say Vin in the Mistborn Era 1 books. She's very much the tomboy character who you could have absolutely seen her as a non-binary or genderqueer character if this had been written 25 years later than it was, or 20 years later than it was. So if you guys have any other characters from other series you've read that you want to talk about, please go ahead and do that. But for those of you who are writers, talk to us about your characters, how you write about them, your favorite ones maybe, or your least or most favorite things about putting these into your works.
Honestly, the thing that I have found most interesting about my ace character is that anytime I talk about clothing, it's a performance for her. She's not putting on the dress because she wants to be pretty. She's putting on the dress because she knows that will allow people to view her in a certain way.
Yeah.
When she's wearing the heels and the nice suit, it has nothing to do with, oh, this makes me look good. It's okay, this is the appropriate costume for this setting. I currently have her as an ambassador at the UN, so she has to do these, basically, and she, even when she talks about makeup, she literally refers to it as either armor or persuasion. Because it has nothing to do with how she views herself. And I guess I find it kind of funny because in many ways I'm the opposite. I work from home. The only people who really ever see me are my cats. And I will still put eyeliner on every day because I hate the fact that when I look in the mirror, I can't see my eyes. Because my eyelashes and everything are so exactly the same color, and my vision's just bad enough that if I look in the mirror without eyeliner, I can't see my eyes. And it actively will bug me, so that I will put the eyeliner on just so that I can see my eyes clearly when I look in the mirror. I know it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I find it just amusing because, and it has nothing to do with, I need to look pretty. It is, I need to see where my eyes are.
I'm not an author.
Oh. That's why you're just sitting there texting.
Just doing a fictional.
Way to fucking call me out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in the current series that I have, it's not high fantasy, and really, I just have Loki. That's in it. That's gender fluid, which we can tie back into the mythological influences of high fantasy later. Yeah.
Sure. Loki is so true.
Literally, but I am working on an isekai that has takes place in high fantasy world, and I just mentally counted in my head while I was waiting. I was I only have one cis person in the party. So I have
the dream.
Right, there's gonna be the main character is gonna be a trans man, there's a high priestess that's a trans woman, there's going to be two different types of non-binary people in it. But I think what I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that as I'm going through is, so the trans man is the one from our world, and he's always been kind of traditionally masculine in his presentation and never really been into the girly thing, so it was a tomboy and young and stuff, and then gets mentally, spiritually, whatever, transported into the body of a character from a fantasy story that is a dude that really loves makeup and pretty things. And he's got to, pass himself off as this character so nobody's the wiser that now he's this stranger there, and so he's got to learn how to do eyeliner and try to but I think he's gonna go on his own journey of seeing kind of that reflects sort of me whenever I came out as trans masculine, and at one point I kind of rejected all things feminine because I worried that if I wore anything effeminate or put makeup on or did anything, people would say, well, then you're not trans anymore, or you're not trans enough. Yeah. And it took me a while in my own journey to realize that, no, I could do whatever the hell I want as my body, and it doesn't take away from who I am.
I started writing in boy mode, and I was trying to do a non-self insert. So of course I wrote a lesbic, and then and my main character was dealing with an arc of sexual assault recovery. And it was my recovery that I was discussing, and I got such mean comments about how this is an R-word trope, or this is what happens when men try to write women. And I was like, bitch. Rereading it, she goes in this video game world, right? And it's a high fantasy tone, so we'll skip that. She immediately augments her body to feel comfortable. And we do jaw work and hip work and shoulder work and chest work instantly. And then she steps in and goes, and I'm like, how did I not see that before? Because I was an egg and I was about to shed. So we put on blinders. I was really proud that I wrote that. And I'm excited to come back to that series again one day when she's got updated stuff. I don't know what pronouns we're gonna rock, or we'll find out. I need to ask that character. But I'm excited because I'm gonna start writing scary. I'm gonna start writing like my first openly, this is a trans story book. And I'm terrified. It's going to specifically not be romance. There's no sex. She's going to have 3/4 and she's going to reject them offhandedly because she's fighting a war to distance the sexuality and gender thing.
Yeah.
And I just want to have a story of a trans queen that's like just rocking it, right? So yeah, I guess that's it. It's very complicated and very involved and very scary to sort of do the thing that you want to do intentionally instead of accidentally.
Anybody in the audience have any questions, comments? Yes. Yeah, if you can make it to a mic, that would be preferable because this room has terrible acoustics.
It does.
Yes, go ahead.
It's high fantasy, but it's sort of not related to books. I watched a video about like video games recently and how in a lot of video games, the main character is implied to be bisexual because you are the main character and you have like female love interest, male love interest, da 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 da. What I'm trying to ask is like in a third person narrative or something, right? If you're writing a main character and like even if it has nothing to do with their sexuality, how do you imply in the same sense that you would that the gender isn't what matters? Ignore it. Like that's not the focus. Or you can infer the gender. Like how do you sideline gender as a whole? Or make it so the non-binariness is implied.
Yeah.
That's a hard one, yeah.
I guess I would like to, I have an adjacent answer. I think that will be close and then someone else will do better than me. But I wrote Asherai as a trans mask in my most recent series, and there are hundreds of clues, but not fucking once did I say that he has tits or a pussy, because it was too vulgar. It wasn't needed. And so I'm just waiting for the queer to read it and go, right? So I gave a lot of clues about how the love interest discovers him bathing and he comes out of the water and he's just shamelessly stalking out and staring at her and she's like, oh fuck. And he's kind of intense because she's seen his secret, right? And he didn't intend for that to happen. And I said something about how she saw a lifetime of scars across his chest. And because he has certain conditions with like sigil marking for power, he binds his entire body. And so I specifically say in a sentence how he binds his chest in front of her. And no one got it. But I think you can do so much to like indirectly say things. Subtext is everything. And good readers actually see it.
Yeah.
So if you're doing something that's like genderless or non-binary, I think it would be the same to just sort of de-emphasize. The other way that's fun is to do both. Like Jeanette Winterson's Written on the Body avoids pronouns. And it's terrifying for some readers, but it's so sexy and so good. And describes this person as like a modern day Cleopatra and another comparison of like a male role. And so you're getting like mask femme, mask femme, mask femme, and then like non-human as these like comparisons. And it does something to your brain where gender just shatters. And you're just like, oh, they're hot. I can see that. Sorry if that was too much.
No, not at all.
I mean, I think I kind of almost addressed it earlier when I was talking about like how to be able to write like even if the person walks in with the ball gown and the boobs and stuff, just the way that other people address that person, they, them, he, him, or anything like that, can just be a quick and easy, subtle way to be able to do that. Just make it not a big deal. Like you can write a world where that's just not an issue, where like it's just normal. It's your world. You make what you want.
And
like,
that's radical.
And I gave on the previous panel we were on like 2 examples of a really like good animated series to watch that have examples of this, and it's going to be Owl House and She-Ra and the Princess of the Power, which are both normalized. That's normalized. There's several non-binary characters in Owl House. People just will shift between pronouns if they've got multiple types of pronouns that they use, like the collector kid, right? The collector used he, they, and stuff, and they would in conversation shift it. And there's a shapeshifter in She-Ra that's a they, them, but also, and again, I know, as I said, sexuality and gender are two different things, but also both of those show normalization of sexualities and things like that as well, and how to be able to handle those, I think, very beautifully.
I mean, one of the ways I like to play with it is have a standard, quote, uniform for a culture. So, let's say everybody pretty much wears skis, except when you want to do something fancy, and that's how you say how you're presenting. There isn't a necessarily, I went to a Christian school, so I had to wear dresses every day. I just wore shorts under my dresses because that wasn't going to stop me. But if you set up so that for the entire culture, all of the clothing is the same until you choose which way you want to go, you can have a lot of fun with it, especially with people who one day choose this and another day choose this. But in their normal day, you're just always wearing the gi. And then some people choose never to choose.
Yeah, I just want to really quickly bring up something related to gaming. Link is canonically non-binary in The Legend of Zelda. Purposefully, canonically non-binary, and I need, if you didn't know that, you know it.
Just because it's not about writing, that doesn't matter. You're still and you're queer and you're valid.
I mean, the Legend of Zelda is fantasy for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you could argue that it's not high fantasy, but She-Ra, you could also argue She-Ra is fantasy.
Yeah.
You could argue that it's not high fantasy, but listen, we're here for this.
Okay, you guys touched on this in the last question, but with high fantasy, what do you each feel about queer normative culture? Yeah, and because they're both cool, going either direction, both have their uses. But what do you each feel like?
I love them.
It's tired.
I mean, it's a much more interesting world to read because, good Lord, I live in one that isn't queer normative. Why would I want to read one that is if I have an option?
Well, I actually think there's really a lot of nuance there where, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do politically in a weird way.
Yeah.
There's something very radical about saying, this is a world in which none of this fucking bullshit matters. And it's liberating, it's freeing. And then there's also something nice about reading something where you're oh, they're doing the same painful, horrible shit I am. So both can be transgressive and both are necessary. But yeah, I kind of want more of the queer utopia because I haven't seen a lot of it. Thanks for the question.
I just want to go back to Tolkien for a second because I think there's an entire race. I know, that's my wife. But I think there's an entire race in Tolkien that hinges on gender queerness and gender ambiguity, and it's the dwarves. They have their secondary sexual characteristics make them indistinguishable from dwarf men, and so that's another way that Tolkien was doing something very unique that he probably didn't even realize that he was doing at the time, but saying that only the dwarves can tell which of them are men and which are women. If there were elves or men, they would look at them and just be this is a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, I love that so much. However, I also there are parts of that I don't like. So if you're outside of the Tolkien fandom, there is a fan theory that Gimli is actually a female. And I hate that because I'm a big Giggles shipper. I'm not a fan of making that into a straight ship personally. And I feel like you teed me up to talk about this. This was unplanned. If you are familiar at all with The Lord of the Rings, after the rings destroyed, Deus Ex, Eagles.
Eagles.
Yeah.
Strawberries.
Gimli and Legolas go off on an adventure together, and they go to Fangorn Forest, and they go to the Glittering Caves of Aglarond. The Glittering Caves of Aglarond is based on the place that Tolkien and his wife honeymooned.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really sweet.
It is so sweet. And he apparently cried while he was writing it and all of this stuff. And I
My boy
get in
Tolkien's
fights.
gay.
Yeah, I get in fights with people all the time about like there's no queerness in Tolkien, and like obviously there is, and it's not just stuff that we're reading into it as queer readers. Like there's legitimate queer stuff in there, guys. Like it's so good. But yeah,
I love you so much.
I find that like non-binary dwarf thing so great, and you don't really. Peter Jackson didn't do a very good job of it, because you can still tell the difference between the female and male dwarves, and you should not be able to do that. If you play Lord of the Rings online, when you roll a dwarf character, it's just dwarf. There is no gender. Your gender is dwarf. And like Tales of the Shire actually has a female dwarf character in it, and you wouldn't know if they hadn't used the female pronouns. It just looks like a regular dwarf.
Is the Scottish accent, does that just automatically make you genderqueer too? Because all dwarves are Scottish, right?
It does seem that way, yeah.
I mean, this is actually, I don't want to go off like on a tangent about this, but I do have a question for you. Have you watched Rings of Power? Because I know a lot of people were mad about the female dwarves in Rings of Power, like, oh, they don't have beards.
They very technically have very like Smeagol-esque beards. Like they're kind of there, but not really. Yeah, that did make me upset. However, oh my god, I'm so sorry if you've gone to any of the Rings of Power panels I've been on. I'm a pretty famous Rings of Power hater. But I love the dynamic between Elrond, Durin, and Disa so much. It's made me overlook a lot of the failures that they've had surrounding the dwarves, because like they are a thruple. They are a trans-species thruple, and oh, it's so good.
So before this panel, I'm like, okay, genderqueer, high fantasy, trying to think back over stuff I've read, and I noticed that a lot of the, especially recent stuff that has a genderqueer main character or major character that has come out more recently is actually not written by white people.
Great.
So just, there was a question here, but for the panel and the audience, a few examples. We have She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Murphy.
Oh, it's so fucking good.
The Singing Hill Cycle by Nhi Ba. The Water Outlaws by S.L. Wong.
Hang on, that's SL's new one?
Yeah, so that last one was Water Outlaws by S.L. Wong. The Tensor series by Neon Yang. Again, these are just ones that came to mind first when I was thinking about stuff. And
obviously your brain is working way better than mine.
When I was researching for this panel, I recognize a lot of these series that came up as
Yeah. So my question, and I realize this is a very white presenting panel, but
I'm white as fuck.
Rachel Dolezal.
Maybe a cultural perspective on writers who approach genderqueer fantasy, and perhaps particularly in the context of more patriarchal societies. If there are other cultural perspectives on writing and reading non-Western high fantasy and different ways that affects the gender in those works.
Yeah. All right, hi. So my degree is actually in religious studies with a primary focus on East Asian religion, so I'm going to do my best for this. So I do think you bring up a good point, and for good reason, because if you've got the Judeo-Christian stuff, it's far more strict, but a lot of other religions, especially ones that are in Asia and stuff, have a more genderqueer representation in the belief systems. For example, if we go into Buddhism, we have Avalokiteshvara, who then becomes Queenan, who then becomes Kanan. It starts off as a masculine bodhisattva, so a bodhisattva is like someone who reaches Buddhahood, but then holds back from that out of compassion and wants to help others. So it starts off as a masculine, and then moving through China out of India becomes a female bodhisattva, especially by the time you reach in Japan. And even in Japan, there's also, my favorite is Jizo, which is a bodhisattva that protects children who died Jizo is believed that in his previous life was a woman, and there's like a lot of things there. And you also, of course, have Shiva. Everybody knows Shiva. Shiva is very well known for having dual aspects, lots of nods around here. I believe Shiva has, like Loki, been pregnant before and stuff too. So there's a lot of things that in their culture they're already exposed to that we here aren't. And stuff that we white people raised in very Christian and things don't have. So that definitely, I think, affects narratives that you will find coming out of different areas.
I also think we're working against colonialization.
Yeah.
Because that wiped a lot of shit from the cultures that should have more access. It's, I think, an intentional act to decolonize and to reclaim. Hell yeah. Even
within Europe, okay, the spread of Christianity wiped out stuff. So talking about Tolkien is highly influenced by what? Norse mythology. You know what Norse mythology has? Not just Loki. Not just Loki, also Odin. Right. All right, and Odin is also a very genderqueer thing because you were talking about a character who got into healing magic, and that's usually masculine. Yeah. And Odin does magic, which is usually feminine in Norse mythology. Only women did it, except Odin.
And then you had Freya, who is both the goddess of love and of war.
Yes. So
another god to remember that I always thought is horribly underrated is Anasazi. Most of the time, it is referred to as he, but he took female shape, he took gender neutral shape. Anasazi didn't care what he was. Anansi, yeah. It's like, and Coyote is just about the same.
Absolutely.
Especially in most Native American, Coyote would do whatever thought was most appropriate for that point in time.
Why they all gotta be tricksters though?
That was a different panel a few years ago. I was a trickster panel. Oh my gosh, it was so fun.
So we were talking about like high fantasy and genderqueerness. I was thinking about like the Discworld series, for example. I know not every single book in that series would be high fantasy, but I was wondering if any of you have any thoughts on some of the genderqueer themes in those books. So, for example, wizards are traditionally considered to only be men, and then like one of the first few books, a little girl becomes a wizard, or the same thing with like dwarves. How there's a whole plot about how dwarves start allowing women dwarves to present more femininely, and like that being a big like cultural conflict and a big gender thing.
I think the only thing we could say is Sir Terry Pratchett fucking rocks. I mean, he did so much stuff. Literally, he loved to tweak everybody, and how he did it a lot was in his writing. And I really wish I'd had the opportunity to meet the man, but I think the answer is yes. He would have written the stuff that he wants you to take those reactions from.
And then I've also heard a lot about Terry Pratchett and the Discworld series and the representation being good, especially for like the time period and when it was written.
It gets better as he ages and the further books because he has so much fun with stuff.
Well, it's not always the case, honestly. Like, most writers I've read, I can't say all, but most writers I've read, especially those who publish like in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, whatever, they grow so much as writers, but also with the times too. Like Sanderson is a good example of somebody who's grown with the times. You're right, exactly. They are supposed to, but it's sad sometimes to see the ones that don't and that still remain so popular.
Well, and then there's also the fact, and this surprised me, I had a fan write into me and was like, oh my gosh, I love that you did X. And I sat back and I went, I did?
Oh gosh.
I went and looked at what they were talking about and they were right, I did, but it wasn't conscious.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with me trying to do this. It was just what happened and what struck a resonance with that reader. And sometimes that's the most amazing thing about being an author is you affect people without ever going. There's a world of difference between making somebody cry because of how you phrase something and making somebody cry because you just killed their favorite character. And when you phrase something and it causes them to bawl, it's just this feeling of, wow, thank you.
Yeah, I have actually a comment to add first that will tie into my question, but they kind of came up organically. One of Tolkien's other big influences often gets mistakenly lumped in with the Norse side is Finnish, but they are not Norse. It's a very distinct culture, and their epic Tale to Kalevala was very influential on him as well. I definitely want to reread it as an adult to see what there is about gender, and there's got to be stuff, I feel like, because it's very distinct culture. I lived in Finland as a kid, so that's why it matters so much to me to point out that influence on Tolkien as well. But it ties into my question that I came up here with was 2 of my favorite works to play with gender do it from a more anthropological perspective, which I really enjoy. One of them isn't fantasy, but The Left-Hand Darkness by Ursula Le Guin.
Fuck yes. Why didn't
does that.
Sci-fi.
But also The Wheel of Time, which I think doesn't get discussed enough from its anthropological perspective, in which he very much, Robert Jordan, it gets overlooked, that he shows how gender changes across cultures. He shows many distinct cultures throughout the series, and they have different gender norms for every one of them, which inherently changes what genderqueer means from character to character, depending on what culture they're from. And so my question was, because it's something I love so much, I haven't seen many authors do it from that kind of anthropological perspective. If any of you have authors that kind of play anthropologically that way with what gender means from culture to culture and queering it in that sense.
Just really quickly, because we're running out of time, but Stormlight, the hand glove thing, he does a great job at showing different ways of how people present. And then we get Shallan becomes her little spiral thing, and you get to see her for the first time not wear her glove. And it's her culture, so she's going against her culture, and she's just really uncomfortable.
Just to be clear, not to interrupt you, but just to be clear, if you haven't read Stormlight Archive, in this particular, the Alethi culture, women wear what they call a safe hand. They call it their safe hand, and it's not just gloved; it's usually completely covered. Like they can't even use their fingers in that hand. It's very interesting. Like you said, when she takes off. I'm
and
this
then what
person
she
now.
goes through and this discomfort, and then she's like, "This is fucking awesome."
Yeah.
But that's all. Sorry. Each of the cultures in Stormlight have different ways of doing gender norms, and it's very striking.
I wonder if that comes from him taking on the Wheel of Time at the end. To be honest,
it might honestly.
He got a lot of influence from that for sure.
I can't remember the exact time frame in terms of when he took over for Robert Jordan and when he wrote some of this stuff into the Stormlight Archive, but it would not shock me at all if his experience writing some of the Wheel of Time books fed how he wrote some of these cultures in his own series.
I definitely think it did, and my question's answered because that gives me another series that now with the Stormlight Archive, clearly.
So we have about 4 minutes left, so we're going to try to get through these real quick. So what we're going to do is rapid fire, ask your question. Don't be nervous about it. Ask it as quickly as you can, but don't feel like you have to really rush. And the first person on the panel to answer is the answer, and then we'll go to the next one.
Yeah.
Rapid fire.
So a lot of magic systems have some kind of body modification or illusion magic. What implications or even downfalls does this kind of magic have in telling specifically a trans or queer story?
Wow, we're so rapid.
That was good.
It's an awesome question, but I feel like
that could be a panel.
That's a very complex answer.
Yes.
I would say the answer is yeah. Nailed it. Sorry.
No, that's great.
Do anybody else have any thoughts other than
that's too big of a question?
And honestly, you're right. I honestly think that could be its own panel itself. So I will say, rate this panel and put that in the comment section for Jen. She does honestly take panel feedback very seriously. So say, I want this panel next year. Over here real quick.
Alright, so super fast, first I want to second that recommendation for the Singing Hills series. It's amazing. But my question was if any of y'all have read Anne Leckie's The Raven Tower.
I haven't, sitting on my Kindle.
Our main character in that one is a trans man, and I also I really enjoyed the magic system in that book and the world building and everything. So if you haven't read it, I recommend it.
Okay. Snaps, always love a recommendation. Over here.
What was that last recommendation? Okay, I'll come to you.
Yeah. Yes, the lovely person in the Star Trek uniform has all the recommendations for you guys.
I need to make a spreadsheet before coming, so I can write down everything that I want to do after I drag it.
Yes.
Not a question, more of a recommendation. Fantasy, but not a book. In Stars in Time is a recent RPG that came out, and all of the characters are trans, and they all have their pronouns in their little description. And the magic system, there's literally a section, or a large part of it is the change. So people will change, and as they if they come to realize something about themselves, they can make that change, and it's just very accepted. And I'm all for
we have enough to deal with to like not have to talk about all of the trials and tribulations that come with being trans, to just have it be, it's good, it's great, we all do it. I like that game a lot and wanted to shout it out.
All right, last question.
As you can see, I'm dressed like a zombie, and I see a lot of times in fantasy books that monster or non-human characters are automatically the non-binary, genderless, whatever.
Oh yes,
and
queer coding
villains. About if the assumption that monsters or non-humans are all the trans representation we get, how does that affect like the writing of trans or non-binary human characters?
I think a lot of trans and non-binary authors are trying to change that by making it so that we have trans and non-binary human characters because we're tired of seeing ourselves as non-humans. And villainized, yes.
Yes, and sexualized.
Yes.
It was useful for a long time as well to try and have a lens to see anything differently. But it's time to fucking change.
Yes. All right, well, I'm gonna close this out real quick. I do have one major suggestion. I personally consider it high fantasy. I don't know if you looked on Amazon, if it's necessarily billed that way. Has anybody in here read the Ending Fire trilogy by Sarah El Arifi? Great I'm not going to spoil anything, I promise. Great representation all around. It's written by a PSC woman. Differently abled characters, queer characters galore as well. There is a character that's kind of a secondary character, I would say, in the first book, but becomes a primary character in the second and third books, who is trans. There are several minor and side characters who are non-binary. No one questions anyone's pronouns. There is gender-affirming care readily available, even for people in the lower classes. It is amazing. So if you have not read the Ending Fire trilogy, I highly suggest. Thank you guys so much. One last time, I'm Tara. You can find me online at a Geek Saga. Rest of you guys, where can people find you? Names and finding?
Rose Reynolds. I write as TG Reynolds or Atlas Kane if you like slutty shit. Come find me tomorrow for the Balancing the Power Fantasy, and I just wanted to say that you're all really beautiful.
Yes.
And it's 2025. Existence is resistance. It's so cheesy, but don't pull away from yourselves, babies. I love you.
Hi, I'm DL Wainright. I've got one last panel that I have to run to immediately after this. If you have any questions to ask me, just follow me to the Marriott or I'm the Hyatt. Or I'll be at Terrence Lair in the vendor hall tomorrow. You can hit me up there.
Yeah, again, I'm Alicia Fox-Lenz, a queer lodgings podcast. If you are a dinosaur like I am, I do have business cards up here, so you know where to get in touch with me.
Mel Todd, you can find me at Bad Ash Books, and I will be at the dealer hall all day tomorrow. Send prayers for my feet, because that concrete floor sucks.
What?
Other than that, I have an epic fantasy that is very different. No dwarves, no elves, no dragons.
All right, guys, thank you so much. You guys are a great audience, and thank you for your thoughtful, amazing questions, honestly.
I know you've got to run.